Bueno, vamos a entrar en el último panel de la conferencia, en el que vamos a hablar del paso de ser un fundador o un CTO, un tecnólogo, a ser un estratega, a ser un experto en finanzas y a poder manejar una empresa grande. Este panel viene patrocinado por EDEM y nos han pedido que pongamos un pequeño vídeo antes del panel, así que ahora mismo.
EDEM es una escuela de negocios ubicada en Valencia, cuya misión es la formación de empresarios, directivos y emprendedores y el fomento del liderazgo, el espíritu emprendedor y la cultura del esfuerzo. Creada en el entorno de la Asociación Valenciana de Empresarios como una fundación sin ánimo de lucro, de carácter privado, con la idea de satisfacer una necesidad, disponer de una escuela de empresarios, promovida por las propias empresas, que se dedique y dirija a ellas. Los programas formativos son impartidos por empresarios, directivos y docentes del máximo nivel que transmiten sus experiencias y las herramientas y técnicas de gestión más innovadoras y exitosas en sus aulas. Se caracteriza por un alto rigor y calidad de la formación. EDEM, Escuela de Empresarios.
Bueno, y para moderar este panel voy a invitar a Paloma Cabello, que es consejera global del MIT Enterprise Forum, una organización sin ánimo de lucro de MIT que conecta empresarios con la universidad, con emprendedores, y que además también es cofundadora del MIT Enterprise Forum en España, además de consejera de mi propia compañía y amiga de hace mucho tiempo.
Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos. Bueno, estoy contentísima de lo bien que lo está haciendo Pino en esta edición de EmTech. Como ha dicho Pedro, entre algunas otras cosas, tengo el honor de ser consejera de su compañía y la verdad es que da gusto estar involucrada con una startup como esta. Así que enhorabuena primero al equipo de Pino para empezar. Me gustaría además dar las gracias a Valencia, a la Generalitat. Muchas gracias, Máximo, por estar aquí, todo el equipo. Ahí veo a Chimo también, todo el apoyo que han dado, todo el apoyo que están dando también al MIT Enterprise Forum. Y además de todo, quiero mandar un saludo muy especial a todo el equipo del MIT Enterprise Forum España, que está ahí, que luego va a hacerse cargo del foro de inversores en el que muchos van a participar. También a la presidenta del MIT Enterprise Forum España, Clara Pombo, que no la veo desde aquí, pero que debe estar en la audiencia en alguna parte, y a nuestro vicepresidente Pablo Fernández de la Torre. Bueno, ya saben los que nos conocen que nosotros hablamos en inglés, aunque seamos españoles. Así que yo apenas voy a decir unas pocas cosas más en español y luego después voy a invitar a mis compañeros de debate hoy, pero vamos a hacerlo en inglés. Ya saben que nosotros creemos que los emprendedores deben hablar inglés y además lo que nosotros hacemos lo promocionamos y después se va a ver en todas las webs de la red del MIT Enterprise Forum en el mundo, además de las de EmTech. Por lo tanto, estamos muy interesados que sea en inglés. Así que si hay alguien que necesita traducción, a lo mejor ahora es el momento. Yo, mientras suben mis compañeros, me gustaría un poco plantear el debate. Hemos pensado que era muy interesante. A través del trabajo del MIT Enterprise Forum en España nos tropezamos continuamente con la misma cosa, ¿no? Tecnólogos que necesitan convertirse en gestores de compañías. Y los dos modelos son posibles. Hay quien ha pensado que de tecnólogo se puede pasar a gestor y que es un paso natural y que se puede hacer bien. Y hay casos de éxito en ese sentido. Y hay otras personas que creen que no, que es muy importante ser un gestor. Me gustaría presentarles hoy a Stephen Madlin, que es el líder de la compañía Lifeland. Él después hablará de sí mismo. Él viene de la banca de inversión, del Corporate Finance, y ahora está involucrado como gestor de una compañía que está llena de científicos. Y José María López-Urdiales, muchos yo creo que quizá le conocen, él es un ingeniero y ahora es el consejero delegado de una compañía que está metida en un lío enorme. Así que, si os parece, podemos sentarnos y empezar a hablar de este asunto que seguro que más de uno de los que están en la audiencia se ha planteado. I said that I will be speaking in English, so this is the English part. I would like first to ask my partners today to present yourselves. What is LifeLength?
LifeLength is a company in the healthcare space which is commercializing a proprietary diagnostic test which allows for everyone here in the audience to know their biological age. And this is done through measuring a very important component of the DNA called the telomere. And the telomeres are the caps at the end of our chromosomes which divide every single time our cells duplicate and are gradually worn away. And this is a component of biology found almost in all forms of life. And as a consequence, this has applications for industry, for academic studies, and for personalized and preventative medicine. This company is a spin-off from the Spanish National Cancer Research Center. We are currently working in more than 20 countries commercializing our service.
And what is the dream of life then? Which is the ultimate goal? You said that your science works to help people understand the biological age. But what is the ultimate dream? What is that useful for in the end? Maybe people in the audience will be wondering.
So I think we all know that we live in a world now where lifespan has increased in the last 50 or 60 years by almost 60 or 70%, and people are routinely living into their 80s and 90s. But there exists an enormous problem. People talked about yesterday the elephant in the room being China. Well, there's another elephant in the room, which is aging. In a world in which there's going to be more people above 50 in Europe than under 50 within a couple of decades, we are confronting ourselves with an enormous social and financial challenge, which is not only to have lifespan, but to maximize health span. And the chronic diseases, or rather the acute diseases that may have killed your parents or your grandparents, things like tuberculosis or pneumonia or the flu, those, thankfully, at least in the developed world, have largely been eradicated. Of course, there's always a few exceptions. So what are the diseases that are going to kill in this room, every single person in this room, outside, if we take out suicide and take away accidents, 3/4 of all deaths are going to occur from three classes of disease, which are cancer, cardiovascular diseases and complications, neurodegenerative diseases. If we include other diseases like diabetes type 2 and chronic kidney failure, we're now well above 80%. And every one of those diseases has something in common, which is they're all age-related. Typically, young people don't develop these diseases. And telomere biology is therefore related and is an underlying component of all of these age-related diseases. And in fact, there's more than 17,000 scientific publications about this. So we aspire that this is going to become a standard biomarker in healthcare, and our analogy is that this is like cholesterol testing. And cholesterol testing, which everyone here gets done every time you have a checkup, was a test that was first commercialized in the early 1980s. It was an expensive new technology for which there was no pharmaceutical drug. It was just a test that you could do, and it had a statistical correlated risk with cardiovascular disease. And as time went forward, the technology got more sophisticated. People began to understand that actually whole cholesterol was not the most important measure of cardiovascular risk. It was actually breaking down the lipids and fractioning out the components of the fat and blood that mattered. And the pharmaceutical industry realized that with the ability to have a good biomarker, they could now invest resources to see if they could lower cholesterol, which they knew would therefore reduce cardiovascular risk, would save a lot of lives, and it would also make them a lot of money, something that's obviously, which they aspired to do. And that led, 15 years later, to the most important class of pharmaceutical drugs that exist today, which are called statins. And some of the brands that you probably know would be Crestor and Lipitor, and these are drugs that are the biggest selling drugs in the history of the world. But all of that was preceded by a biomarker, a diagnostic test. And we think that telomere biology is at least as important as cholesterol in that it underlies just about every disease that anybody in this room could name. And therefore, we believe that as we move forward, we're going to be working with the pharmaceutical industry to help them develop their drugs, and with the physicians and the patients to incorporate this as a standard biomarker of health. And that in the future, as we move forward, there will be pharmaceutical medicine available to allow us to regulate the aging process, and if not extend lifespan significantly, at least extend health span, which is something I think that we all agree would be equally as important.
Wow, that's such a huge goal. I mean, you guys, you need to reach to the entire world. So that is a challenge. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. What have you done? Do you come from the scientific environment the audience would like to hear? Or what have you been doing before, and what do you do in life science, in life's length?
So my experience in biology was in college a long time ago. And I'm perhaps a little bit unusual in that there's I think a lot of Spaniards who've gone to the US to start their businesses. I've actually come to Spain. So I grew up in Los Angeles and was educated on the East Coast and worked in corporate finance and investment banking for many years. But I happened to fall in love with a very beautiful Spanish woman, and we got married. And I've been living now in Madrid for going on 16 years. And after working many years in this field, in corporate finance and management consultancy with my own firm, we ended up getting involved in this particular project because it was actually started by a client. So one of our clients was Spain's largest foundation, which is the Botín Foundation, which supports life science initiatives. And they hired our company as advisors to evaluate an entire portfolio of scientists whose work they support in Spain as a private foundation, so they're not a venture capital firm, they're not looking for a financial return on their investment, to determine where was there potentially science that could go into the market, whether it was an out-license, whether it was a startup, whether it was a joint venture with a pharma company. And so they said, we're not hiring you for your scientific expertise, which we know you don't have. We're going to give you that part. They have a whole department of PhDs who gave us the comfort around the validity of the science. What we want you to do is look at the market and how can we monetize this? Because the problem that we face in Spain, and in many countries around the world, but Spain doesn't have the tradition of the United States in these things, is that there are very good researchers. We've heard that here. There's very good talent here, but a lot of time, as far as it gets, is a publication in a scientific journal. And that's very nice, but that doesn't create jobs, that doesn't create wealth for a country, that doesn't create a sustainable economy. So we spent several years looking at a number of projects, and that was my informal education. And eventually we came on this project, which had several characteristics that we liked, because developing a drug from scratch, as we've heard, is a very, very difficult challenge. And in fact, it's so difficult that unfortunately in Spain, if you take the list of the top 300, 400, or even more largest selling pharmaceutical drugs in the world today, there is not a single drug that is manufactured by a Spanish company. But if you look at diagnostic testing, where the regulatory burdens globally are much lower, you have the path to market that's much sooner, and that's critical to raising capital and to being able to monetize something. So this technology, which had been developed with a very significant investment by the Spanish government through the Spanish National Cancer Research Center, was a technology that people were coming from around the world to saying, can you measure our telomeres? Because we want to look at whether this particular drug impacts on telomere length in this cell culture. We're a cosmetic company. We want to see whether this product in our cream may help maintain telomere length in a particular type of skin cell. We're a food manufacturer for pets, and we want to look at nutrition and health in dogs. So when we saw here we have a relatively mature technology in which a huge investment had been made, and it needed to be polished, it needed to be industrialized, but a lot of the heavy lifting was done. It had been done by a very prestigious center, which gave a lot of credibility to it. We had potential clients coming from the United States, from France, from Asia, calling on the center. So we had the two most important things that I think any entrepreneur needs to be able to establish when they want to build a business, which is, can I have a product or service? Can I demonstrate that I have a product or service that I can commercialize?
Product. We will talk about product later.
And is there a market?
And this is the way an investment banker is talking about science. And Jose Mariano, what is InBloom? Tell us about your company.
Sure. My company's goal we say we are purveyors of elevation. What does that mean? I mean, we want to elevate things, take things up as high as possible, but not only things, also consciousness. We want to raise people's awareness of the fact that they come from a planet. How do you do that? How do you become aware that, hey, we are all in the same boat, literally, that is floating out in space? Well, you take them out, and then you get a perspective. and then you see the blue earth, the blackness and the cold of space, and you say, oh, well, maybe we should care about each other. Maybe our borders are not that important, really. And this is something that astronauts have felt, and this is something that people are willing to pay good money to experience. And so that's what our goal is, to offer that experience to as many people as possible. And the means to that, the product, the system, the tool to take people up to that altitude is a special type of balloon that we're developing, and that's what Bloom is. And that's our first product.
Mm-hmm. And now, EmBloom is about, would you say that EmBloom is about technology? I mean, you're the inventor of this technology. What have you done for the technology that EmBloom is doing?
Technology plays a role, of course, but this is not done for technology itself. This is done to solve a problem, and this is done to enhance life of people. I mean, in the end, that's what we all want. I mean, we want to live healthier, we want to have a better food, more fun, and such. So we believe that going up and seeing the planet is a better life than not doing it. I mean, and it seems to be the case. So of course, you need a technology to go there. And I'm an aerospace engineer by background, and I worked on several aerospace companies, such as Boeing. I also worked at the European Space Agency, and these are all technology-focused companies. But in the end, the technology, to us, as I grew up, the technology is just a means. I mean, you have to provide that service and that experience, which is what matters. Say, if we could have the best balloon in the world or a best rocket ship that would go to the moon and go back, and amazing, but hey, what if it didn't have any windows? Okay, it may be super light, super optimized, but you don't see anything. You're just floating inside a tin can. Nobody's going to pay and nobody's going to invest, and it's not going to happen. So in the end, we found out that we spend a lot of time working on the technology of the window, so that the window is big and offers the view that the customers want. Mm-hmm. So it's all centered about the human experience in the end for Bloom, and the technology is just a means.
Mm-hmm. And how about yourself? You said that you are an engineer. I would love you to share with the audience about your education and also the environment you grew into, and how you reached to the idea and to the invention, or to maybe you gather technology together more than inventing, I don't know. But I would love you to explain a little bit more about yourself as a technician.
Yeah, sure. I have to say my father is an astrophysicist, and I grew around discussions about rockets, balloons, interplanetary missions, and things like that. To me, that was like normal dinner table conversation. And then, as I grew up, I realized that wasn't the case for everybody, of course. And so the idea initially came from a conversation with my dad 13 years ago. Okay, and then I didn't expect to start a company at all. I think for the discussion that we have today, I mean, I think it's quite relevant to think of the specific background of the entrepreneur, even going to the childhood. I mean, for me, I had to go through a process to become a CEO. It wasn't very natural, because one of the reasons is because my parents were civil servants, and are civil servants. My dad is an astrophysicist, my mother is a geography professor in university, and most of my family members are civil servants. So I had no understanding of running a business in any way when I was growing up. That wasn't part of the dinner table conversation. Maybe spaceships were, or migrant fluxes in the Caucasus, or things like that, but not running a business. And I think it's super important. I only realized when I was in third year of aerospace engineering school in Madrid, I realized that I needed to do an MBA, and I needed to learn a little bit about those skills to run a business, independently of what I wanted to do afterwards. I had not yet thought of Bloom, but I thought, well, it's super important that you also try to complement yourself, or either I start relatively soon, or I'm going to be frozen as a scientist sort of person. So it's good that I saw that early in time, I think. But it's a process getting there.
Good. So I think it's very clear that different people coming from different backgrounds will see things in a different manner. I've been listening to our scientists here talking about dinner table conversations about stars and rockets and things of the sort, and how he realized that didn't have the skills to become a manager of a company that will be able to take your technology to the people, to the market. On the other side, we have an investment banker, corporate finance, and we have been listening to Stephen talking about products, markets, distribution, opportunities. It's a totally different way of explaining a company. So I would like to walk us, all of us, through the process of pulling together a business together with you. And first, product tends to be first in the mind of people that is whose life is technology. You are working together with a team that is formed 100% by people that is inside a lab, or that whose experience is almost purely science. And you probably needed to surround yourself by people that is more skilled in management, because you are a very good technician. So when it comes to speak about a product, I would like to understand how the concept is addressed from somebody that is getting himself into a scientific environment. All of a sudden you find yourself there, and you need to speak about product with these people. What, in your opinion, will be the difference between your way of understanding the concept product and the way the team you're working with is understanding the same concept?
So you're right in that we've now developed quite a multidisciplinary team. So within the company, we have people who are PhDs in molecular biology, we have physicians, we have people in sales and marketing, we have people in finance. So we've begun to round out what a full business needs. But at the start, I remember being in a room where I had my little MBA, and everyone else is a PhD. And so I was always very clear. I said, I'm going to ask whatever dumb question occurs to me, because that's the only way I'm going to learn. And I was very fortunate that the people who've been involved in the project were very generous in explaining things that certainly to them will have seemed very elementary. But I think what that process also teases out sometimes is, as you say, they don't necessarily think the way that a customer will think. So for us as a business, you want to think, am I going to be able to deliver the service every time at a certain cost? How long does it take to process a sample? All of these things. When you're a scientist and working in an academic environment, very often, you don't know what things cost. This is coming out of a public institution.
Do you think that scientists ever think about the customer? Would you say that the customer is something that is in their minds at any point?
Well, I think you have to differentiate whether it's a scientist working in a purely academic environment where this project originated, where the concept of customer, maybe the mice that which are being experimented on. But no, I think if you're in a purely academic setting, your customer, what is your customer? Is it the publication that you hope to have in the New England Journal of Medicine? Is that your customer? If you're doing a postdoctoral thesis, is it your supervisor? On the other hand, scientists who are working in industry, I think, certainly can understand very well who the ultimate customer is. So I think it depends a little bit on the context.
And same to you, Jose Mariano. Do you, in your opinion, product is, you come from the product world, from the technology world where product is what matters. And, but you, when I was asking what will your company do? You were explaining that you wanted to have people seeing the world in a different manner, which is not exactly a product, but it's about the people. Is this way of thinking of yours something that was with you from the very beginning? Or you think that you have developed this after you have tried to understand how to reach to the market?
I think I've learned to verbalize it, but it was there since childhood, I think. I think I wanted to share the joys of space and the excitement that I had with as many people as possible, and the marvels. So it was there, but I wasn't very good at explaining it. And so when I started the company, I decided not to go for a while for 2 or 3 years to space or space technology symposiums and places like this, but about space. But high-end tourism ones.
It's a good thing that you said that, because taking people to the space because you want them to see the world in a different manner and you want them to be conscious of the world out there is a very scientist view on things. But then spatial tourism,
space tourism,
is a totally different thing. Now you're talking about business.
Well, I think they're the same. There's two sides of the same coin. I mean, they may not be aware that that's the need, that the underlying need that they're satisfying with the trip.
But how would you go? My point is, we are trying to understand whether the concept product could be understood in a different manner from people that has different backgrounds. Now. You need to sell tickets for people to fly, the high you want them to fly. And now you need to be in a market where you need to compete with other products. So have you thought about that in terms of how to sell, not how to having people going up, but how to sell? How much of your personal time is devoted to this, for example?
To selling.
Selling tickets.
Selling tickets. Not a lot, really, because it's more my personal time. I devote more time to a strategic way of how to get those sales to happen when it will make sense for them to happen, more than a tactical phase, which would not offer a lot of return on the investment of my time. I think if I put my team to try to sell as many tickets as possible, we would sell more, certainly. But we have to, in the world of today, that people don't read business plans and they are too busy and they have a certain attention span, you need to have a certain demonstration capability. So that's why we concentrate more on the products. But we think a lot to make products as means of an experience. I mean, we don't really talk that much internally about the vehicles like in a normal engineering company. This is the balloon experience. It's the experience that matters. We are doing experience from the moment they see that we exist in the website to the moment they come back and later when they talk to other people that fly. And we have to make sure that the product that we build is compatible with that experience. And in that aspect, I think, from what I see with other market entrants, other people that are claiming to offer that kind of experience, I think we're doing pretty well. And really selling tickets for something that doesn't yet exist completely and it's not completely certified, it's really, really hard unless you are you're everywhere and very, very visible and everybody knows you and trusts you because of your previous business endeavors. So it's not really the moment now to sell, although we've sold tickets.
I wonder whether you have lots of venture capital with you. Maybe not yet.
Not a lot.
And that explains that you are not feeling the pressure that much for sales. And let's talk about teams. I wonder whether team working at lab level is one thing, and team working when you need to run a company and you need to create a sense of team out of a group of people with different goals, and not just investigation, not invention, but you need to set up different teams that will need to do different things, is something that I think that must be challenging for somebody that is a scientist. How do you create, I would love to hear how the two of you address this challenge for a leader. How do you work with your teams? How do you organize your teams? How do you create that sense of belonging and that sense of common purpose in your case?
Well, there's the aspirational component to it that you have as building a business that takes people into space, which is something that is unfathomable for most of us, and companies can now begin to do. In our case, we have an aspirational goal, which is quite lofty as well, which is to bring a unique science and technology to the marketplace, to contribute to medicine for everyone on the planet, and to make a lot of money for our investors and shareholders. So I think if you can put those three things together, you can feel good about going to work. And then in the day-to-day, we have two clearly differentiated parts of the company, which is the lab team, which are very focused on basically two pieces. One is delivering the day-to-day results of the service. So we're getting blood samples from people who want to do our test from Vancouver, from Tokyo, from Sydney, Australia, from Madrid, from many countries around the world. And we have to process those samples and generate a result and deliver the reports back to our lab partners and to our physicians for their patients. And then we have the work involving improvements to the technology, taking it the next step. And those people we have a very strong chief scientific officer, and he runs that department, and I delegate this whole area to him. And obviously we have continuous meetings, but he's providing that leadership, and we have a very clear path. And so I think people know what is expected of them and where we're going. And so I think that helps people when they come to work to say, this is what I need to do to take the company where it needs to go in the scientific part. But we also bring those people in with all of the commercial and marketing side of the business, and vice versa. So there's a good deal of cross-fertilization. So the people who are working on the commercial side know what's going on in the lab, and the people in the lab know what we're facing commercially. And we try to foment that and foster that, so there's a cohesion and there's a spirit of camaraderie and teamwork.
Good. And how about you, Jose Mariano? Do you, I guess your team is formed also, I mean, there's lots of engineers, I guess, and there's lots of people that deal with, with the physical part of things. But I guess that you, even if you are not that focused in sales right now, I guess that you have a multitasking team. So yeah. How do you create that sense of common purpose?
Yeah, well, I have to add that we do have sales of scientific flights, okay, not just, which is an important part of the business, but so in that way we are already selling, but actually this is a very new activity, okay, and for any new activity it's very difficult to compartmentalize and say, okay, this is the design, this is the manufacturing, this is the operations, this is the maintenance, this is the sales, because nobody really knows when one starts and the other starts, because it's not that mature. This was the same for aviation in the beginning. The same people that would make the airplane would be the people that would fly the airplane, because they would be the only people that understood it. So this is the same for us. And we've got a team of 12 people, and the lady that gets my train tickets is the lady that holds the helium hose to inflate the balloons, and she knows a lot of things of the technical parts as well. Like, we do a lot of front office on the back office and back office on the front office. It's quite mixed, and in a way I try to, in a way, give an example and do more or less the things, the way I think that, giving an example in terms of never giving up, always not taking no for an answer, and being relentless, and that's the kind of thing that I want to see in my team, and you have to do it yourself, and then they will be able to appreciate it and do it themselves as well. And since in my case I have to have some understanding of the business side, but also some understanding of the technical side, that's what for the moment we're trying to keep. Of course, it may not scale that easily, and we are aware that at some point we will have an engineering department or whatever. But I think it's really good in a new business, in a new area, to have people that understand both sides and are so you can really be fast implementing changes and taking decisions and not having to convince, because it's already in one brain. It doesn't have to be a discussion between two people which way to go.
How much is scalable is that?
Sorry?
How much is scalable is that? You think that the moment you start selling, by the time that you decide focusing more in that, the activity in your company is going to grow.
Yeah.
So you will need more people on the field working with the balloons and on the operational part of everything. And on the other hand, you will need more people devoted to tickets and sales and administration and everything else. And what do you think your current team will maybe split into two, or you think that everybody will need to keep on being involved with everything? Or how do you see that?
Of course, you can't do everything, but I think I think also from the side of the experience of the customer, they don't want to be sold a ticket by a person that doesn't understand how it works. They want to talk to the engineers, they want to go and touch things. You have to, in a way, keep it as part of the DNA of the company, because that's what makes it unique, part of the experience, and it sounds very void when you just have people that are just selling this like they could be selling you flowers or anything else. So I think to a certain extent, I want to see a little bit of that still, because really, if we didn't do that at all, we would probably build vehicles that would not be adapted to the client's needs.
Mm-hmm. And well, now let us talk the tough cookie: finance, investors, money. Finding resources to having the company growing, and finding money to pay for more people and for everything else. I guess you feel comfortable when you speak with investors because you've been very much involved in the industry. So how do you address that matter? I mean, you have an investor already, because the Botín Foundation is an investor already. They are non-for-profit, but if you want to grow the company up to global scale, I guess that you need to think about addressing the private equity industry. How do you feel about that? You have are you leading the company in a way that the company is going to be eligible for that, or you're just allowing the scientists to develop without this kind of view?
No, I mean, in my case, where I have less strength in the technical side of things, I have more strength on the financial side. So being able to present the business case to investors is something I feel relatively comfortable with. Of course, it's always very different when you're an advisor than being a principal. So I have a lot more skin in the game. So I've become a very big investor personally in this project, and the opportunity cost for me as well is very significant. And this is definitely a project that, while we have customers and generates revenues, to achieve even a fraction of our ambition requires significant resources. The nice thing that when you go and speak to investors is that as we alluded to earlier, is we're at a point now where we deliver a service, we have customers, so we have traction, and that makes it much more tangible. But ultimately, yes, this is something that has to raise capital, and investors have to feel comfortable that there's going to be a financial return. And so this is not, people don't invest in just science. Science on its own, there's wonderful science experiments in every industry around the world, and there's thousands of beautiful papers that get published in high-impact journals every day that go nowhere. So the thing that we think that we're trying to achieve, and that ultimately any successful business has to achieve, is to achieve the mixture of good technology with a business plan such that you can then commercialize a service or a product and reward the providers of capital.
So you feel I guess that you you address the idea of an investor in a way that is collaborative. It is money that is allowing my project to develop, but they do need a return.
Absolutely.
Is that what you say?
Absolutely. I mean, no one is, you know, in our particular case, we were fortunate to have some financial support by the foundation, but they're not an investor. They're not going to lead a round of capital. That is now for us to achieve as the management team from whatever source, whether it's high net worth individuals who think that this is a fascinating project and want to participate in it, or it's healthcare venture capital firms, or it's strategic partners. Those are all the avenues that we have to obviously explore in order to acquire the funds to take this forward.
Good. Jose Mariano, tell us about your experience with investors. What has happened so far?
Well,
how have you been doing with investors?
Yeah, we've been doing all right, and it hasn't been really as we expected. Just so that you know, the first investor was a balloon company, the biggest one in the world that makes balloons. It's a Spanish company, and they trusted us really early when we were only 2 people in the company. And then we led a round led by La Caixa and a few business angels that took us where we are. And so I was surprised that all the capital came from Spain. That wasn't my expectation. I initially thought, well, I'm going to pitch in Spain, like in ESADE and IESE, who are near where I live in Barcelona, and then make the mistakes, and then grow my launch, go farther and go to Stuttgart, to London, to the US and stuff. And what I found out is that people that, in my experience, investment is absolutely an emotional decision, and there's very little in companies. I mean, there's very, very little rational thought about it. Of course, there's justification. You need to have an Excel sheet or whatever, but it's not why it happens. So I think it has to do a lot with emotional intelligence and making people feel that they really want this to happen and they can be part, and they want to be part of this. And of course there's the returns and so, but it's not because of the returns that they invest these kinds of things. And it's also, it would be the same, like I know I have family that were frightened because of the Madoff scandal, because they had put some money on some institution. And why had they put the money in that institution? Because they trusted that institution. It's also emotional. It's not really the returns. It's because they trust the brand. So you need to get that trust. And so it's, and in my experience, it's really tribal. I mean, if they went to the same school, if they also were an entrepreneur about your age, those things help a lot, help much more than really good graphics or yeah.
Do you think that your life will have been easier in front of investors should you had an investment banking background, same as Stephen, for example?
I'm not sure. Maybe different investors. I don't know. The thing is, I know very well Virgin Galactic, which is the one company you can benchmark us against, and this company it took them 5 years to raise the capital. And it was done by Credit Suisse, and they spent a really long time, and it was a pretty hard job for them. This was investment bankers from Credit Suisse going to different places trying to get the investment. And it took them a really, really long time. So I think it's hard. I mean, getting investment in a field that has 0 successful exits, like nobody ever has made money out of this. And a lot of people have lost money. That takes, is quite difficult, even,
but
for everybody.
For example, should you have hired an investment bank to raise money for you? Do you think that you will have more money or resources? Or?
Maybe, but I wouldn't have been able to pay them. I mean, I would have had, say in the beginning, I have the money, I say, oh, either I build a prototype, small one, and show that I have the skills, or I can put all that money into a PR agency and an investment banker retainer and wait for that. It's too risky. there is no investment banker in the world that has a good track record on finding investment for space companies. That doesn't exist. I mean, it took Credit Suisse, which are probably one of the best 5 freaking years. So who's gonna? You can't really. I think it would have been quite irresponsible. I think it's good now. Now we're working with a large accounting firm to raise some of the capital, and I think it helps a lot. It helps a lot more than that it's them saying it. But maybe now at this stage that we've already done like 9 test flights. If I had started just with the idea, I don't think it would have gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Stephen, that you will need to hire an investment banker or anything else, or you think that you could just on your own, you'll have a good dialogue in front of investors?
No, I think we need, I mean, we're currently looking to raise money, and we have a number of relationships with companies that are assisting us to raise capital. So this is a project, I think any company, when you're taking a new product to market, whether it be flights into space or commercializing a new diagnostic biomarker, investors are always concerned about, what is the adoption of well, how big is the market opportunity? How quickly will it be adopted? Because you can't say, well, I've invented, a new brand of water, and I know the bottled water market is so big, and I'm going to get this certain market share. So you have to put all the irons into the fire, and we have a network of people who are assisting us, as well as my investors, and of course I'm coordinating that effort.
And now what happens when investors are already in? You have these venture capital guys coming to the meetings, and you have their breath in your neck all the time. And do you think, Stephen, that a scientist is well prepared to understand the investors, understand what they need, and to developing the company according to value creation dealt for process between them or an investor, or you think that that is something that really doesn't happen?
Well, I think there's a potential for a lot of tension there. I mean, obviously, if you're in a business where there's a big investment in R&D, where product cycle time is long, where it takes a lot of resources to develop your product, you could perfectly get yourself to a point where the investors, particularly if they're venture capital investors, who at the end of the day are not the owners of the money. They are themselves not really truly the principals. Mm-hmm. They are advisors to the LPs who've given them the money. And so they have a fund life, and they have to give a return, and they have to account to other people as well. So there can be a point which is they need to exit their investment, and the scientific team or the management team may not feel that's right, but that's why these types of investors have very sophisticated mechanisms, mm-hmm. Typically to address those kinds of situations. And it may be, and it's difficult to say whether the venture capital guys are right if they force an exit, because perhaps the management team thinks it's premature. But maybe that strategic sale actually is what's going to allow the company to go on. So I think every case has got to be analyzed on its own merits.
José Mariano, which is, in your opinion, the most important challenge that you personally have addressed when you have found yourself in front of a big company with potentially big company with big commitments taken, and soon a big team and big projects around the world? Which is do you suffer at any point of the day? Do you really feel that you don't have, you're missing something, or you feel totally comfortable? Is there a challenge that you could name?
No, I can't really say it's totally comfortable. It's quite stressful and quite intense. But one of the annoying things is it's so difficult to find practical advice, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs in different fields, but their experiences to some point are applicable, but not that much. So you feel quite alone, actually. The good thing is my team is great, and they help you raise your spirits, because you see them that, probably if I had a health problem or something, they would probably even succeed with the company, which gives me some comfort. But yeah, it's finding the right people to help you make decisions and contrast your points of view. There's not that many in my sector with relevant experience. Also, obviously, funding money. I mean, we happen to have found companies in the middle of the worst recession to date in Spain. So it's quite a challenge, really, to find the investment at this stage. Of course, it's difficult for anybody in any stage in this particular field because, as I said, there's not been any successful exit and it's quite new. But it's quite... I wish I spent less time on fundraising, really, and more on the experience development and the growth of the company. I think it's a very inefficient process, frankly, the way all this fundraising and stuff is done. I'm sure there must be some better ways than what we see today.
Do you think that you would do better at fundraising if you were coming from the investment banking world, for example, rather than being an engineer?
I don't know. Maybe. It's difficult to know. But I wouldn't be doing this if I were coming from the investment banking, probably. I wouldn't have the drive on. So, yeah,
who knows?
It's a difficult thing to say.
And how, Stephen, whenever you work together with your companions that are, all of them are scientists, and you speak about fundraising and about dealing with investors afterwards and you know, driving together a value creation process, do you think that they could do that without you?
I'm going to say they might be able to do it without me, yeah. I think it's much more important, the engineering side of it in your business. I don't think you could do your company with an investment banker, and I don't think my company would but my company could certainly exist without me. There's something about the creation of the actual underlying technology, which in my case I certainly would never have developed, so I'm very lucky to be in the situation that I am. Hopefully I'm helping the company go faster than it would have otherwise gone. But I certainly think there are lots of examples of companies where good scientists, good technicians, people with technical backgrounds can raise lots of capital and don't need to have a corporate finance or investment banking background. Hopefully what I'm helping to do is to articulate the message a little bit better than what someone who's just a pure scientist would do in terms of explaining it in terms that the investor thinks about. But I rather think that it's the science that really drives the project. And when we sit with investors, very often, particularly if they're sophisticated investors, it's our chief scientific officer they want to speak to a lot more than they want to hear from me.
But you're still talking about you and them, you know, as different things. Do you think that a lab person very much focused in the research, in the invention, can really turn into a manager of a global company, the one you are willing to build, including finance, including team building, including distribution?
You know, I think there's lots of examples where good technical people have done that. I think it's difficult to acquire all of those skills. In our case, the people that we have on the scientific side, for example, we work very much as a team, so there's not such a great distance between us. And our chief scientific officer, for example, has been in industry, so he knows what it's like to have shareholders, to deliver a service, a commercial service, and so on. I think to build a big global company, it's normal that there's lots of changes that happen along that path. In our particular space, there is the global market for diagnostic testing is a huge, huge industry with sales of hundreds of billions of dollars globally. And the logical thing for any company which has developed a particular technology, however good, is ultimately to form part of a much bigger commercial company which has the granularity to disseminate, in our case, our test to a much greater level. So there are laboratories that we are speaking with which have sales in the hundreds of millions of dollars that want to be partners with us or potentially investors. And then there are laboratories above them that have sales in the billions or in some cases close to $10 billion. And these are the companies that ultimately will probably own a company like. So I think it's probably unlikely that actually we'll ever have the opportunity to grow it as a standalone company to its full global ambition because the resources required to do that don't make sense. It makes sense to ultimately to form part of a much larger entity.
And Jose Mariano, you at some point of your life you reflected on your capabilities, on what you wanted to do versus your ability to do it. When this happened, first, did you realize that you will need to develop your skills as a manager at the very beginning, or it was something that happened at a later stage? When did you realize that you needed to acquire management skills?
Yeah, I realized when I was 20 years old, so even when I was still in university. And I didn't know at that time what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know at that time. I had not had the idea of Bloom or anything like that. But I thought that would be an essential life skill in the 21st century. It wouldn't be just useful for starting a company, but it would be useful even if I wanted to be a pure nuclear physicist, whatever. Having put some effort into developing skills with teams, with finance, with all the other marketing, all the communication, all these aspects would be very, very useful, even for a pure scientist. It doesn't really matter if you're a marketeer or an investment banker. Those skills are useful for you as you exchange with people, because we all use money, we all have subordinates, or we all have customers in a way or another. We all have to communicate what we do. So I felt that was important quite early on, much sooner than I had started the company. It took me a much longer road to say, from the moment you say, I have to learn these things, to, hey, I can actually implement those things and get investment and do a company. That was a long process, actually.
Do you think that any technician, any engineer should learn management if he wants to set up a company, or you feel that it can be done without management skills?
I think
or without management education, sorry.
I think it's a problem of the educational system in a way, and that should be addressed anyway at the educational level, so that you don't find so many people that are very capable technically, but they are so introvert and difficult to work with, which is really unfortunate. And that's a little bit because of the way we educate people. I think that should be addressed really at a much younger age in the way that you are tested in schools, and that right now doesn't really help a lot, in my opinion, to develop those kind of soft skills.
Mm-hmm. So you think it should be done at school level?
Yeah, management, in a way, yes. The marketing, management, communication. In Spain, we are doing a very poor job at that. We don't have kids doing speeches, never. Like most people do their first speech when they graduate, and there's one person just of the whole class, and that's it, and nobody else has ever done a speech. I mean, how come? We have to do something about that. But of course, in Spain, we have other criteria for education and, and other discussions which are a lot less fruitful, in my opinion. Yeah, like.
Well, I think to me, I don't know how much of this has been seen from outside, but to me, it is a very different way to address a company growth when you're talking to an engineer, even if he has acquired management skills, and when you're talking to an investment banker. But my conclusion might be that there's not only one way of doing things. It is probably possible for everybody to manage a company, no matter where you come from, being from the technology world, or you come from investment banking and you have been used in the past to learn how companies would grow. But what is important is to understand that companies are what their products do for people, what the market wants to do with what you have to offer, and that also investors need to work together with you, but only if you understand well that they need to have a return. And to me, I don't know how much you guys would agree with this. It is as simple as the market wants your product, and you know how to have your investors and your shareholders earning money. And this can be done with or without management skills if you understand this well. Don't you think so? Or maybe you have a different way of saying this?
No, I agree. I mean, ultimately success is not defined by the resume of the person at the company. It's a fact. There's many factors. There's external factors about the market, and then there's the internal factors. And success can take place in any environment. So I don't think there's any formula that says that somebody who has a finance background can't run a technology company, and someone who has a technology background can't be a great manager. I think you can see both things.
Jose Mariano, what is going to lead you to success?
Yeah, I think stubbornness helps. Yeah, being relentless and really going for it. I think that's necessary. At least in my field, that's necessary. Yeah.
Spirit, as always. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this chat. We, of course, will be sharing this debate. Also, EmTech will be. Of course, this will be in the web of EmTech, and also we will be linking to this in our social network. Today we have tried to show how different people will address the same problem in a different manner, but it still works. There's lots of technological people here. There's people coming from the labs. All of you, or many of you, are these days incorporating companies or have incorporated a company. And we have tried to help you understand that it's your spirit, your ability to put products on the market that the market wants, and your ability to create value for you, for your investor, what matters. Ultimately, spirit. So thank you very much to everybody. We will be waiting for you at the Investors Forum, all of you that are joining us. And thank you, Jose Mariano. Thank you, Steven. Today you are volunteering for other entrepreneurs. I hope that this is a thing that you maybe don't do this every day. And I have been very happy to share this debate with you. So thanks to all.
Thank you.